A man should be able to lead from a place of love and protection, and not a place of control and manipulation. Based on conditioned society and design, the common nature of a man is to want to lead and protect and provide security, be it financial or physical. But when a man places this nature over the well-being of his woman or his family, it does not mirror what a balanced relationship should be. It only mirrors imbalanced ego and control. And in turn, your woman may reflect those energies as well. A woman should recognize if she's with a naturally dominant male or not. And if that male is naturally dominant, that woman should know how to complement his nature by nurture. If that male, for some interesting reason, is not dominant, then she must learn to complement that nature as well. But complementing the nature of a non-dominant male may be difficult to do for a real woman. Even if an effective chemistry forms as a dominant female connects with a non-dominant male, she will eventually grow tired of being with a boy. A woman stabilizes the emotional tone in a relationship, and a man sets the tone. Based on how she responds or reacts to the kind of man she is with, will establish the tone in the relationship. In other words, a woman is always going to represent and reflect the energy of the man she is with. Everything that she is based on an infinite power to reflect, like the sun to the moon. And men are designed to activate that reflection in a healthy way. We as humans are supposed to rule the surface of this earth side by side as complements of each other. So lift your woman up and lift your man up. But it can appear to be difficult to lift someone up who is better at putting you down or just being down. So you must first learn to lift yourself up in consciousness and allow the good vibrations that flow through you to pass on to whoever you coexist with. It is a practice that you must work on moment to moment, day to day, and it ain't easy. But you know what they say, easy come, easy go. The interesting thing is, anger and drama can come so easy into a relationship, but it can go easy too, if you hold your focus on the opposite. One does not have to embody everything their partner, friend, or family member is. Just simply learn how to tolerate the little things that may or may not be nerve-wracking. And don't make a big deal out of the little things and address them in love. And don't respond to someone addressing you with love, with hate. There is always something to be learned from one another, and this is the sole reason for coexistence. If we didn't have to learn from one another, it would be very clear that we are one power. But it would first start with something like telepathy, and even though we may not manually know how to perform telepathy, the longer you live with someone, you start to finish their sentences anyway. The sooner we are able to thoroughly coexist, we will be able to perform things like telepathy and one day maybe even teach it. Maybe even teach it through animals. But until then, let's figure out how to coexist with one another. Remember, the better you learn to live with yourself, the better you can live with someone else. Then do a mental inventory, and you will see the makeup of your thoughts. Then ask yourself, are your thoughts enlightened-based or selfish ego-based? Chances are, if your thought process is more selfish ego-based, then life will reflect those thoughts. If your thoughts are more enlightened-based, then life will reflect those thoughts because you get out of life what you put in your mind. We just have to learn how to maintain balance and perform the simple task of making sure the healthy thoughts outweigh the unhealthy thoughts. And yes, one can be too enlightened to the degree that they are disconnected from what is actually going on in the world. You can be too enlightened. Too much of anything represents imbalance, and one can be so spiritually enlightened that there's no room for natural emotions. Even worse, one can be so full of pride and ego that there is no room for enlightenment. I'm not saying that ego is good, but it is relevant to understanding truth. So it must coexist with the higher frequency based spiritual self. You see, in the end, it all comes down to a balance. But that's just one word. It is the day-to-day, moment-to-moment toggle and practice as the earth rotates around the sun, spinning at hundreds of thousands of miles, and we can't even feel it. To practice, to make perfect. Practice to make perfect. You may not make perfect, but you practice to make perfect. The only thing that is actually perfect in this world is death.
But death is not real, the proof is in life.
There is a philosophy that says the devil is God's most loyal servant, even to this day. And when I heard that, I couldn't believe how it could be true. But the purpose of this belief is to clearly specify the contrast between the two entities in order to see God's goodness. In other words, if there was no opposing energy to God, then we could not clearly see the difference. Or if there were only hard times, we wouldn't even recognize it even if we were living in it. A few years ago, I watched a movie called Vampire in Brooklyn, and in this movie, the writers made fun of that topic. There was a scene where Eddie Murphy shapeshifted into a minister named Preacher Polly, and Preacher Polly said, "Evil is good, because if every day is a sunny day, well, then what's a sunny day?" And in the movie, they made light of this idea, and it was hilarious. Now, I don't think that evil is good, but it is relevant to understanding truth, and both are needed for one or the other to be identified. And the good needs to be recognized more often. Besides, it's all God anyway, so it's all good. We just have to learn how to play the game and not allow a game to be played on us. And like Dr. Phil Valentine says, what we are missing when it comes to the male and female harmonic is equilibrium. It is not about equality, people, as much as it is about equilibrium. Most people don't even realize the gift in not being equal, as it creates a way for us to learn from one another. Most women don't really want complete equality as much as they just want to be treated fairly, because there are some perks that most real women I know are not willing to give up for the sake of just being equal. But until we as a collective consciousness can hold ideas of a fair life in our minds, a concept of collective fairness cannot exist. Once we can understand the importance of balance and equilibrium versus equality, we can experience a harmonic dichotomy between men and women. And once we do that, we can begin to transcend. Many spiritually enlightened people have talked about
transcendence.
And as the legend states, we will move from a three-dimensional existence into a fifth-dimensional existence in the new age of humanity. But there can be no transcending without the harmonic dichotomy between men and women, because we were designed to be a pair, not apart. Harmony can potentially be achieved through honest practice and an embracing of natural design and nature. There are many things that we are not honest about when it comes to the understanding of one another, like Dr. Coco Welton states, "Stay with me because I'm going somewhere."
For one,
we are naturally designed to relate to more or less 10% of our opposite sex. Sort of like the yin and yang sign. If you observe the yin and yang sign, the black half of the symbol has a little white dot, and the white half of the symbol has a little black dot. The little dot of contrast and color on either side represents the gateway to understanding the other side. So in a sense, we are one, because we all have both sides.
but
To exist in this third dimension,
detention,
masterfully and effectively, we must first learn how to balance the two by realizing that we are complements of one another, not exactly opposites. And like Dr. Coco Welton states, we are more like opposites. There's the harmony again. And when it comes to coexisting, we must remember that in order for it to work, we have to harmonize or irrigate the dis-ease consciousness with a non-biased but honest approach. For instance, We as people must face the fact that we are willingly willing to accept a lie because it's easier than believing truth. But sometimes the truth is hidden right in front of our faces. We would like to believe that most of the medical industry is for the best interests, right? For our best interests. But when you look at the growing rate of people ending up with new to old diseases, with this modern medicine being the root of the problem, it should make you say, But most people don't. What I'm going to say may be a shocker, but then again, so is the truth. Here it is. Here it is. Most people know that AIDS was created, even though some people still think that it came from a monkey in Africa. But if you check back in American history, you will find that it did not come from a monkey. It came from America. Not a monkey, America. And it started in the early 80s when homosexuality was on the rise. As I studied the work of Dr. Phil Valentine, I came to a shock to find out that in New York and LA, a new drug called poppers had emerged in the gay club scene. Now, what these poppers did was give you a flighty feeling in the head and at the same time loosen up the sphincter muscle, which is the booty hole, allowing more anal penetration. It also drastically lowered the immune system and impaired judgment. What this led to was lots of unprotected anal sex in the tens and hundreds level with partners while weakening the immune system simultaneously. All of a sudden, they begin to get sick with the same symptoms, and the name of this new diagnostic was called GRID, G-R-I-D, which stood for Gay-Related Immune Dysfunction, or deficiency, if you like. The real problem was that the political figures also contracted GRID around that same time, and this thing went public and they didn't like that name, so they changed it to HIV, Human Immune Deficiency. I guess that name was more politically correct. Around this time, the cancer research industry's funding had opened up to the public with the intent to find a cure for President Reagan's wife when she contracted breast cancer. And as more random organizations began to research for cancer cures, the government scientists' funding began to dwindle. So they created another medical research industry for people with GRID, better known as HIV. What they found is, if the immune system was at its lowest point, it could be attacked by drugs, and if the drugs were taken consistently, then the effects would be terminal. In other words, the effects would be AIDS. So they came up with Easy Tea in the cocktail, which is just a remix of some failed deadly cancer medication. But you know how they always do, trying to find the cure for poison with the poison. And if you research the effects of these drugs, they make people sick with lack of sleep, while always feeling tired and heavy, dizziness, no appetite, nausea, skin problems, and more. And
That's because it's poison.
now granted, the effects are different for everybody, but the fact still remains. The medical industry pretends to have no cure, and history tells us that it came from a monkey in Africa. But Dave Chappelle said it best.
Nobody fucks monkeys and people.
Another thing, we need to be honest about the racist approach. It could have came from anywhere in the world, but they chose Africa. Doesn't that sound a little suspect to you? Why do they hate black people so much? They hate black people so much. They hate black people so much that there are shadow government doctors that have been literally hand-to-mouth giving out AIDS drugs to sick children to spread the disease like a weapon of mass destruction. America loves black people so much that The savage forefathers created a black holocaust, worse than anything in history, made black people build the country, and gave nothing but the illusion of freedom, exploited and capitalized on the nature and struggle to build a black American culture, and allow not just police brutality, but legal murder by the arms of evil police. Liquor stores and churches on every corner, on every hood corner, mind you, crack, abortion centers, and last but not least, no reparations. We have to know the truth and approach these things with a rational mind and an honest, non-judgmental mind. Black people in America have struggled this way for centuries, and this creates a psychological trauma in relationships with friends, family, but most of all, relationships between men and women. Struggle can do one of two things, and that is bring people closer together or drive them further apart. And when you struggle for so long, time after time, it drives people more than likely further apart. But we must always remember that we as men and women are just complements of one another. And when we can achieve a harmonic dichotomy between men and women, we can achieve God power and do or change anything. And this is why it appears that there are certain entities that want to keep us divided and then conquered. They start with racism, then move into genderism. Next, they will try to divide parent from child. To keep people in a state of division is to keep people in a state of being conquered. We must break free from the constructs that were created to keep us in a weaker state and tap into a higher frequency-based spiritual self and unlock our mind.